Welcome to the Move Local podcast. Our mission is to connect the movers and shakers of the Dundas and Hamilton area who pride themselves on growing a healthier and more connected community. We will do this through having conversations around health, education, entrepreneurship, and much more. We want to be part of helping you move confident, move free, and move local. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Move Local podcast brought to you by The Movement. My name is Dalton, and I'm coming at you with a special episode here today. It has been a while since we've done a Meet the Team episode on Move Local. We have done interviews with most of the current team at The Movement on our podcast. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Jess or I'm trying to think Jenna, who's no longer on our team, but we've had a couple interviews with people on the team, so you guys can check that out. But today, we will be having a lovely conversation with our client experience manager, Lauren Zigelstein, and I'm very excited to sit down, chat with her, have you guys get to know her a little bit more. If you've been through the movement, you've probably met Lauren, talked to Lauren on the phone, seen her in the space, and we're going to learn maybe some new stuff about Lauren today. So,
yeah,
Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. How's your day going so far?
So far, so good. Had a pretty uplifting conversation with the team this morning. And yeah, ready to start the day. It's also rest day for me, so.
It's a rest day, recovery?
A little bit of recovery, so
nice.
Might do some foam rolling later.
Okay. Yeah. Foam rolling's good. Yeah. That'll be good for you. But yeah, I think like the best place to maybe start is just like a little bit of background on you. Like, what was like a little bit of your upbringing like from, you know, an activity standpoint, life, and then a little bit about like what you maybe did before the movement that led you to working here.
Sure. So when I was I'm going to go way back. I'm going to go to 2 years old.
I love when people go way back.
Yeah, I'm going to go all the way there. When I was 2 years old, I actually was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And so at that stage, as you know, you are developing and growing crazy quickly at that stage of your life. My rheumatologist was like, you got to get her into doing as many movements and exercises as possible to help just with her growth, strength, mobility, and whatnot. And so that really put my family into a position of prioritizing that for me. And so while it was definitely a sad diagnosis, it actually allowed for me at such a young age to be integrated into movement and exercise almost right away. But then fast forward, I would say about maybe 7 years from there, I then started getting into swimming, and it got to a place where I was passing all my badges, and my mom was like, I don't really know what to do with you. So she just kind of put me into competitive swimming. And I ended up swimming competitively for about, I would call it about 5 or 6 years, where it was just a part of my lifestyle. Got to work with a lot of really wonderful coaches that helped to teach me about team mentality, how to focus on yourself, go through hard times, but then also persevere and come through. I learned a lot of really, really valuable lessons at a very young age. I'm very privileged for that experience. But with young age training, does come the risk of burnout. And
especially in swimming, from my understanding. Yeah. It's a pretty intense competitive sport with the amount of time people spend in the pool at a young age.
Yeah, I was probably in the pool 9 times a week. So sometimes it was once in the morning, once in the evening, and then we had 2 dryland trainings a week as well. So my life literally revolved around swimming. When I was in high school, I was part of a talented athlete program, which actually allowed for my swimming to be a part of my credits.
Wow.
And that they also provided like some extra educational support for people that were at that level. So they really did want to support the athletes and making sure that they were not going through burnout. But you know, I'm just,
it happens
kind of thing. And that kind of took me some time to get through that. And so navigating kind of where my life would go, I think most teenagers and early 20-year-olds kind of go through that who am I type, experience. But it kind of led me to marketing and advertising, and I ended up being in a bunch of different advertising agencies for the last 15 years. Some of which were incredibly rewarding. I learned a ton. I worked with some really strong strategists that helped me understand the importance of behavior and kind of answering the why people do what they want or do what they do, and how to utilize that insight to create brands that would resonate with the consumer. And so from that standpoint, I gained a wealth of knowledge from that. But then there was also the other side of me that felt like I wasn't really addressing my passion for health and wellness and getting back into movement and exercise as well as sport. And that kind of circled me back to where I am now.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's interesting. I mean, I knew like health was always part of your life, but how like ingrained it had been from the start, and then obviously like going through that competitive stream of like swimming, and I feel like there's like this weird thing where like you get so obsessed with something that it's like so much your life, and it brings you so much value and joy. Like I've always felt like that with sports, and like I played competitively and at a higher level, maybe not as like intense as like what it sounds like you're going through, but how you can get it becomes so much of who you are. So then to like step away from that or have that thing become something that makes you not feel that joy, like it burns you out to the point where you're like, this one thing that you once loved is now like a dread to like go do, is probably like a weird kind of place to be in. And then to see like it come back to being like a big part of like your life now, both like you doing physical activity and health, but also like pursuing it as a career. It's like, it's kind of a cool little like full circle thing.
Yeah, it took actually working with a psychotherapist who is also a career coach to kind of navigate that. I worked with this wonderful man who allowed me to really understand what my inner child, is what he would call it, was really yearning for. And so some of the things that I was doing in my present career or in my past career wasn't giving me the joy that I remembered from when I was a child. Some of the things like being competitive, working with a team, utilizing my body, showing empathy, those are things that are like ingrained in who I am because of a lot of the things that I learned when I was younger. And I do attribute a lot of that to my swimming career, I'll call it.
Right.
And so I think then going and really understanding that, and then from there applying it, was a huge transition for me to know that that wasn't where I should be. And health, wellness, working with people with chronic conditions, working with people who want to improve themselves, was definitely a part of me that was missing, and I really wanted to get back to it.
Yeah. And what drew you, I'd be curious, before we dive into like transitioning to working with the movement, like what drew you to like the marketing, advertising side of things, like when that decision-making process of like, well, what do I want to do with my life?
Sure, yeah. I actually went to school, so I worked at Lululemon for a bunch of years. And at that time, I was like, I really like clothing and the industry of clothing. And so I actually went to school for fashion business. And at that school, I had a professor there who said, like, you really understand human insight. You should really consider marketing. And at that time, I had never considered it. And so I started looking into it a little bit further. And it kind of drew me to it. And I ended up going from that school to learning about creative and business advertising. And I did that at a school in Ontario. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I didn't know you worked at Lulu.
I did. Yeah.
I feel like it's a great place to work.
It is. At the time, it was actually brand new to Ontario.
Okay.
So it was in a time where it was like really building.
Yeah.
And we were originally, I don't know if some of the audience, we were actually on Queen West. The original store was actually in the Distillery district, and then they moved to Queen West. I worked there as a sales associate, and then I also helped with some of the inventory side of things. Again, from that numbers side was always really interesting to me. And then we actually transitioned, once it got bigger, to the Spadina location, and now it's just kind of branched out and has become what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. So like, it makes sense, and it's funny that your professor like brought that up to you. It's always interesting how like some little conversations can like change a lot of trajectories of your life, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But like that idea of like human insight and that kind of thing, like I totally see that. And you know, I have no degree in marketing. Like I have none of that. Like I've just learned on my own through experience, through all that kind of stuff. But you know, we've always talked about marketing here as like fostering meaningful relationships. Like that's what I think marketing is. And you do that very well. So I could see where like that kind of trajectory of like, hey, you should go this way makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear a little bit about like transitioning away from where you were, because I wonder, and I'm totally speculating just based on our conversation here, is like that idea of fostering meaningful relationships, like maybe that wasn't something that you were getting as much in terms of like the work that you were doing to like want to try to find another place that would allow for you to do that. But I would like to hear a little bit about like what led you to move away from like where you were, because I know you were working in a good job and like you were doing a lot of stuff that was great, and like you were, you know, having a lot of impact, but then like making that shift to working with us and pursuing something different can be like a scary thing to do.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of different factors at play that kind of allowed me to do this transition. The biggest one was the fact that I was wanting something beyond what I was doing. But, you know, COVID also hit, and working in a Toronto industry, or a dominant Toronto industry, where that's kind of that commute in was really killing me, especially with two very small children at the time. I had a newborn and then also a 2.5-year-old. So the thought of going back into that advertising agency, it was really bittersweet. I wanted to do what I could, but it was also just like there's something missing for me. I did try to go back to another agency that was closer to home, and it just wasn't feeling right. The brand I was working for was very much so against my value set, and I really wanted to prioritize the things that bring me joy, and that was movement, exercise, my family, being close to home. And that kind of led me to then start actually going back to school. So I went back to school to pursue health and wellness coaching through McMaster. They have a virtual program. So I was able to do that. And as I was doing that, I was like, you know, like I feel like I'm missing the application or the actual like being in the environment of health and wellness to really begin a career or pursue something in this industry. And literally that day that I had, my husband and I would go for walks, and I had this conversation with him that I'm like, I'm lacking industry exposure. You guys actually posted on your Instagram that you were looking for a client experience manager. And I think it was like within 5 minutes of me going for that walk, and I showed my husband, I was like, what do you think? And he's like, I'm pretty sure that's a sign that you need to reach out to them. And I did, and it's like been the best decision I could have made for myself.
It's crazy how that kind of stuff works. And I remember when we put that post out and how it was like, yeah. It's funny. It's funny how things work.
Yeah.
But like, so I get that. And I think like, I would be curious to know from your perspective though, like, I think it takes a lot of effort and time to identify all that stuff. Like, oh, this isn't fulfilling me. This isn't what I want. This is, something. But like, I think a lot of people get to that point, but then they get stuck. Like, was there something that like, was it just like the right time, right opportunity, kind of like it happened, I'm just going to go for it? Or is there like something else that like that was like, that allowed for you to like just go for it and have the courage to kind of like, because I think there's a big difference there.
That's a great question. I think I'm very value set driven. I rely very heavily on my beliefs and values. And I think my last agency experience was very much so against that it kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. There's this perception in advertising and marketing that it is a very hardworking industry. It's long hours.
Yeah.
And I think with that side of things, it really was clear to me that this isn't right for my family. And so I think that really helped to push me into learning more about what is it that brings me joy. And, I just I would take a piece of paper and list, like, what is it that I want for myself? And I wrote down, I want to be in charge of my life. I want to walk to work. I want to move my body regularly. I want to be around like-minded people, and I want to have fun. And I really believe that putting it out there into the universe, and I'm not a very spiritual person, but I do believe that writing things down and putting it out there really does lead you into that direction, because it is who you are. And so you draw that type of energy around you as well.
Totally.
And it did kind of lead me to you guys.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask, and I appreciate you sharing that, is like, I think that idea of like, okay, I'm going to write this down. What do I want? Think about this. Like, that is what people that get to eventually where they want to go do. Like, and I think we think that like, in this world today where there's a lot of social media and content and all this stuff, and everyone wants to like have this dream come true, it's like, that's the stuff that people do, and a lot of people aren't willing to like do that, or they'll be like, oh, that's weird, or oh, like, they'll let like that kind of stuff get in the way of like helping make that decision. Because like I've done some very similar things. Like I still have to this day like a piece of paper that I literally wrote like the map to being here in this like space, and like what we're doing, and like how I was gonna get there, and like what are the things that I wanted, and all of that stuff. And like, have I gotten my Porsche yet? Like, no, but all the other things that I've like have written down like have started to come to fruition. And like, I think there's a lot of value to like, let's call it writing things down, manifesting that stuff. And then my whole caveat is always like, it's like manifestation plus hard work that like actually gets to where you want to go. Which is something that is very much obvious, ingrained into you from like just you talking about like your childhood and stuff that you were pursuing, and even just having seen you here, it's like you're willing to like work really hard to like, okay, I want to be good at this, I want to have the impact, like I'm going to put in the extra time. And I think working on actually making those like manifestations come true, which reaching out to us is like one step in that direction.
Well, that, and also I think actually creating SMART goals is also definitely a component into actually to achieving whatever it is that you're looking for. And not going to, like, you can kind of have a vision of what it is that you want to have. Maybe it is a Porsche for somebody, or maybe it is to have a wonderful business as the movement, whatever it may be. I think having that great vision, but then also being able to take that and to apply it into an attainable, measurable, specific, goal that really helps to bring you to that vision, is definitely something that would be a suggestion if anyone is wanting one. But it does also help. It allows you to kind of see how you're going to get there. And then from there, you can start building out a plan.
Yeah.
Like, this is what my goal is. How is it that I want to then actually get there? And then from there, you can even start drawing into some micro goals, or being able to just like slowly and steadily seeing how that plan can come to be eventually, that Porsche that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. A question I have for you actually was like, so when you see that post that we put out there, like what's the next move? Like, do you go to our Instagram page and like look at it, like our Instagram page? Like what was the like process like?
Well, so I was following you guys because being in marketing and advertising, I actually was like, these guys are doing it well. And so I always, especially for local business, knowing what my vision was of those, those particular things, it was like, this is a place that I can tell does good work. And so I was already kind of having you guys in my eye. And so when you posted that and I was already following you, it was pretty easy for me to want to reach out. But I also think I wasn't pushy, but I was also like, I'm going to show them that I actually want to work here. And I think I, did a lot of follow-ups. I had some really candid discussions with yourself, with Dawn and Will. Will being the first guy that I got to meet, and I was just like, what a guy, he's so sweet.
Yeah, we send him out first.
Yeah. But yeah, just like really going through that and talking and getting to know each of us, I think allowed us to kind of figure out if this would be a good fit for everybody. And I really appreciate that you guys were looking out for like what was in your best interest, but I was also doing the same.
Yeah.
And I really suggest that people do that for themselves as well.
I totally agree. Yeah.
I was interviewing you guys in some ways and making sure
100%.
that what you guys stood for worked with me, and that you guys saw family as a priority, and that you do have fun here. You do move your body regularly. Those are all things that I was kind of testing you guys on.
Yeah. And I think what people sometimes might not realize is like being on the other side of that as someone who's like looking to bring someone on a team is like that in of itself is actually something for me where I'm like, oh, okay, this is someone that very much moves up the ladder in terms of like who we want to bring on our team, right? Like you've actually taken the time to like think about what you want, your values, you know about us and how we operate a little bit. You want to learn more about us because that's important to you. It's like, that's the type of person that, I mean, most businesses should want to bring on their team, but I think like goes a long way. And I think more of like, you're interviewing the business. Like I tell that to a lot of our young clinicians. I'm like, you hold a lot of leverage and like you should be making sure that the clinic is the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And you should be asking questions. And I think if you're going to the right places, like they will value the fact that you're actually very interested and care a lot about like what your day-to-day looks like and what your life looks like.
Yeah. And that could be scary at first, especially
100%.
For people that are newly into the industry. You also don't want to be perceived as being arrogant or abrasive in any way. But you do really need to think of like, how is this going to better my life? Because work is a part of your day. It shouldn't be all encompassing. And so making sure that it is something that you really enjoy doing and want to be a part of, is absolutely important for the employee as much as it is for the employer.
Yeah. All right. So you meet with Will.
You took me to a great coffee place.
Obviously, it all went well. We brought you on the team, and like how long has it been now? Was it like it feels like it's been forever.
Oh, great!
in a very good way, but I know it hasn't been that long, like 8 months.
No, it's probably been. It was September that I started. I think it's like the very beginning of September. So almost a year, about 8 months now.
Yeah, 8. Yeah, okay.
8, 9, 10. I don't know.
I know. That's what I mean. So, how's it been? Like,
it's been great.
Like, what has been some things that you've enjoyed about being part of the team?
Oh, there's so much.
Yeah.
I think first, I think being able to just be around like-minded people was huge for me. I think everybody just jives really well from like a culture standpoint. There's just a really great energy between everybody. From a client-facing standpoint, I actually really enjoy getting to know a lot of the people that come in here. I see a lot of people that are really upset that they're going through rehab, that they may be in pain or they may be dealing with something that just keeps coming up. And to be able to be their soundboard, but then also to then see their journey come to life and knowing that they're going to get through it, and then getting to see them when they leave being so happy is like so rewarding. And getting to just know people better and knowing that I'm standing for a brand and a business that I actually do believe in. I think just makes it that much more fun. Also the fact that, we all really enjoy moving our bodies. That's also huge. I think everyone here lives and breathes what they communicate. And so what you're hearing as a client is literally what they're doing after. So if they're saying like, maybe you should dial back on your runs because your knee is sore, they're also going to do that. Like you guys do that too. Like you live what it is that you're communicating. And I think it's because it's real. It's valid information. It comes from a place of truth and validity, and it works. And so it's really just great to be around that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, we don't talk about it a lot, like public facing, about like our standards here. Like we obviously, as a team, we have our standards. They're up on, like they're in our room. And I think there's always like this idea of like, oh, you have to have these values as a company. And like the one thing that I always wanted as like someone who was going to start my own business was like, I wanted to have values and standards that were meaningful, but I didn't want them to just be something that like sat on the wall, because like you need to check that off in like the idea of like starting a business. And so like something we try really, really hard to do, and you would like to think that you do it well, is like to live those out, right? And so like what I love is like when we bring, like obviously we use those to bring people on the team, because like we want to bring people on the team that are gonna hold that standard. But what's fun is like, for me, is like when we do bring what we believe to be the right person on the team and then get to watch them like do their thing and like see them express those standards to a very high level is like cool. And it's something that like whether our clients know it or not, like we try to bring onto them as well, just because like that's what we live, So it's like embody a healthy lifestyle is like one of our standards. Like, well, that's why we're running and we're lifting, and then we're saying, hey, Lauren, maybe you should try running a little bit, in a nice, healthy way. But like,
why walk when you can run?
Exactly. Why walk to work when you can run to work? Like that's obviously, or like fostering meaningful relationships is like a standard that we have here. So it's like when, you're wanting to get to know people more, like that's because like, that's what we want, and we want people that want to do that,
Totally.
So it's like cool to see that. It's always fun to see that come to real life when like we bring new people on.
Yeah, I would agree. And it, like even since coming on there, we do have a new employee, and she also really exudes that as well in her ways. Everybody is definitely unique and their own individual person, but they all do kind of live up to those. We
need
values.
The uniqueness and the individuals. Or if we were all the same, it would not be be good for anyone.
Be pretty beige.
What is something that you was unexpected about joining the team, or was there anything that like surprised you, or that you were like, oh, I wouldn't have?
Surprised me. Well, to go back on the running thing, I don't think I would have ever thought I was going to get back into running. I ran, actually, when I was in elementary school, I did a lot of track and field, and I was a very, very fast runner. Shockingly. And I think that was kind of the end of my running career, for whatever my reasons had been. I did do a few 15Ks in my 20s, but then I was like, oh, that's exhausting. But then I think what shocked me is that there's a way to run without actually feeling like it is the most exhausting thing ever. And learning the skill of running, I think that really actually did surprise me, that there is a method to this madness. And once you understand it, it's something that is achievable, even for somebody who felt that they could never run again because they have rheumatoid arthritis in their knees. You can do it as long as you do it in a way that is safe for you. And that's incredibly rewarding as it is surprising, for sure.
I love it. What is something that you're looking forward to in the next 8 to 12 months with the movement? Or as you move into your second season? From that side of things, I am doing a half marathon, which is pretty awesome. So that's one thing. And then also, as I kind of mentioned, I'm doing some schooling right now for health and wellness coaching. And so integrating some of the learnings there and applying them into this practice, whether it be on those initial calls that I get to have with the clients that are coming in, or may it be down the road as they are going through their own experiences. How can I support the clients that walk into the door by utilizing some of those skills that I'm currently learning? Just to round out the services and making it a better experience for everybody. Yeah, both of those things are very exciting.
And
I think will be awesome to watch, like, the growth on both avenues of those things. I think the impact on your life with the running and pushing yourself, and then the impact that you can have on the people that come through the movement, or us as a team with like what you're doing with the schooling, is like, it's awesome. We're stoked about that. Before we move into like some fun kind of rapid fire questions, do you have a question for me?
Oh gosh, I didn't think of one, but I can. What is your scariest, or I wouldn't call it a fear, but what is a scariest thing that you think of when it comes to either working with a client or building a business, or even from a personal standpoint? Like, is there something that just like kind of like you have to dig away every now and then, or push aside, or talk through, or
in what sense when you say scariest? Like,
well, what does scary mean to you?
Yeah, like what is the scariest thing that I...
Maybe it is a fear. Like, is there something that you try to persevere through, and what is it right now?
The biggest fear that I have that I'm trying to persevere through.
Yeah.
These are deep questions, Lauren.
You can cut this part out.
It's like, where are we going to go with this one? I think, like, in general, when it comes... Because I think there's a lot of parallels to, like, working with clients, to, like, what I do physically, to, like, what I'm doing with the business. And I think one of the biggest fears around that I have for myself personally is just not giving as like much as I believe that I could. Like, I worry, like, I get fearful that I'm not going to get the most out of myself to give to those aspects of my life. So, like, whether it be my clients or the business or my physical pursuits, like, I fear that I don't give it everything that I have, that I don't get the most out of it that can actually impact like a lot of those other realms to a level that I want to. It's something that I actually really struggled with a lot, and a lot of people talk about the fear of failure, but I actually had a big fear of like, what happens when I actually become successful in the things that I want to do?
Yeah.
And then like, how do I handle that? Because like with that comes like can come more responsibility and more challenges. Like when I think about the business, is like one of the things that held me back from early on wanting to like pursue something was like, well, when I become that, then I'm going to be responsible for a whole lot of other things.
Yeah.
And like, can I handle that? Like, can I handle having to be responsible for a team, or like not only a team, but like my team has families, and like that does fall on me in some way. And then like my business partners and like the people that we serve, like, am I ready to take on that responsibility? Like, how is that going to be? And that was something that like really held me back. And I think even when I think about with clients and early on in my career, it's like the fear of like not being able to give them enough, right, to like get the most out of them wanting to work with me, you know. So like that was at the root of a lot of stuff, and I think it's something that I'm always like thinking about a lot.
How do you work through that?
That's a good question. I think like a big part of it is just realizing that like I think doing the work required to have the confidence that like I'm going to be okay. And I think like there's so much uncertainty, like you're never going to be fully confident, but I put myself in these positions so that I can like stack this proof of like, oh, I can handle this. So like even like with like training and running and that kind of stuff, it's like, well, I'm going to throw myself into this and I'm going to do everything I can to be successful with it. And then like when I do that, it's like, oh, okay, like I can do this, you know. I'm going to start a business and I'm going to do it. And like when I start seeing like, oh, I can handle this, it just gives me the confidence that, you know, even though there's uncertainty with a lot of stuff, like I'll probably be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think like just kind of doing it.
Well, and I think to that point though, like I think where I was trying to go with the question is that like everyone has fears.
Yeah.
It's how you work through those fears to then come out the other side to know that it's in your head. Like how you go about it may change or may pivot you one direction or another, but it isn't make or break in most cases. It's just how you get through it. But that fears are natural experiences and they're natural to have. And I think that was something for me, was being okay that there is fear, but being able to push through and really just say like, what is best for me? I think, yeah, and
how you handle that. Yeah.
Well, as for you
and
too.
as you probably gathered, it's like I'll just do everything I can. Like I'll just work as hard as I can. I'll like give everything that I can to it. Like that's always just kind of how I think that came from the fact that I was never the most talented. Like even when I played sports or growing up, I was never the smartest kid. I was never the most talented. I was never the best athlete. But my thing was like, I'll show up, I'll be consistent, I'll do the best that I can, and like I'm gonna work as hard as I possibly can to be able to put myself in position to be successful. So I think now it's like whenever anything happens, it's like that's my immediate like default, which can be like a good thing because it's allowed for a lot in my life, but it can also be something that can, like anything, go too far out of control. And I think as my maturity into my wise age of 30, I've learned a little bit more about like how do I handle that? Like it's not perfect, but how do I like make sure that it's something that makes me who I am, but it's not detrimental to like my life and other aspects of my life.
I also think you do a really great job of identifying other people's strengths and utilizing your team for their strengths and being able to kind of see everybody for what they are. I think that is what a good leader can do. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room to be able to be the most successful.
Yeah.
And I think, you guys are all incredibly smart and you all have incredible different skill sets that allow for it to be a really well-rounded group.
Yeah.
And I think that's what also makes for you to be as successful as you are as an individual, as well as one of the co-founders here, is that you see people for what they can bring and you allow for them to flourish in that way. So just to give you a little pat on the
Yeah, I
back
appreciate
there.
that. That was the whole purpose of this podcast,
Right?
was to like just have you, pat us all on the back.
Yeah.
No, this is a testament to your skill as a health and wellness coach. We just went down a little rabbit hole there, but it was good. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, some rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
Favorite local coffee shop? And we could be like Hamilton, Dundas.
It's okay. I got it.
Yeah.
It's Detour.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been a Detour fan since the get-go. Yeah. So
Great. Can't go wrong with
Yeah.
Detour. Favorite local brewery?
I don't really drink beer.
Yeah.
But I've had some fun experiences at Shed. So I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shed's a great place.
Yeah,
it's
it
a
is. They have great pizza.
Place. Great pizza, great vibes.
Yeah.
One of your favorite local restaurants?
I would give it to Namu.
Yes.
They are really great, and
Yeah.
their service is great. The food is wonderful. It's small, it's quaint, it's unique. I love it. Yeah, I'll give it to them.
Favorite way to stay active?
I like to change things up, but I'm currently enjoying my runs.
Mm-hmm.
I also like to strength train. Yeah, I'll give it to both of those.
Is there something about you that we as a team don't know?
No.
And I'll preface this
open book.
because one time, when I did these interviews,
Okay.
I did it with we did it with Dee, and she told us a story of how she was in a punk rock band.
So I somehow know that about her.
Yeah. And we're like,
Yeah.
what?
But wasn't she like screamo?
Yeah, she was in a legit punk rock band.
It's so badass.
Yeah,
I love it.
it really
Yeah.
is. And it makes when I said oh yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah.
But
yeah. No, I don't have that type of awesome skill set. You guys know me, I'm an open book. Yeah.
Cool.
I sometimes think I'm a doctor.
yeah, we know that. No. Last question I like to ask everyone is what does move local mean to you? When you hear those words, what does that mean?
I think it means staying active, being a part of the community, and bringing the community together through movement.
Yeah, love it. Well, Lauren, thanks so much for taking the time, coming on the show. It was a pleasure. I'm glad that we got to show people a little bit more about you. I've learned a couple of new things, which is always my goal with these podcasts.
Nice.
And I hope if you guys are ever in the movement, make sure there's no doubt you will talk to Lauren, but make sure you say hi to Lauren. She's lovely, and she'll probably end up getting to your deep-rooted fears of why you didn't do something that you thought you should have. So that's always great. But thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Nice. That was good.